this sentiment right here from Mountain Mama about the Big Ten and the SEC battling. How much do you guys care about this? And I wonder where you come down on this story today. Now, again, yeah, big broad shoulders.
Sore at this point.
You know, my rotator cuff. I'm having to flex that rotator cuff to stretch it out to pat myself on the back from all the breaking news stories today. We told you as long, I believe, as 6 weeks ago, that the SEC and the Big Ten are on opposite sides of the line when it comes to the 5-11 college football playoff format. And I wonder where you come down on this, because I think this is, and you ready for a big word? It's an existential crisis. This is the existence of college football that we are fighting over. The two supposed behemoths, the Big Ten and the SEC, who absolutely control the college football playoff, trying to decide what the format will be. 5-7, 5-11. What's it going to be? 12 teams, 16 teams? And what have I been telling you about a 5-11 for weeks and weeks and weeks now? If you are anybody else, if you are not named Greg Sankey, it's bad for you. If your name is Greg Sankey, it's absolutely the right step to take. With the correct parameters, it's the right step to take. If you're the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, you don't want 5-11. Because the moment that the college football playoff goes to 16 teams in a 5-11 format, the SEC will control the championship of college football. It's as simple as that. And I know you hate that. And I know that this is an SEC Homer show, and I just am sitting here slurping Greg Sankey with these unbelievable knee pads. But think that through. He by far has a league where it's life or death every Saturday down south, where they play 9 P4 games a year. I know you don't want to hear that. Well, Monty, it's not 9 conference games. It's 9 P4 games a year. And if it goes 5-11, they will be playing 9 SEC games plus 1 P4 game. They will be playing 10 P4 games a year. And the thing that should worry you about that is if that in fact is the case, you will have, in my opinion, a minimum of between 5 and 6 SEC teams every year going to the college football playoff. Because kids right now, unless somehow things change significantly in the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, unless things change and those leagues get exponentially deeper and the bars are raised significantly higher, the SEC cares about one thing every Saturday, and that's winning football games. And if they win those football games and they're playing 10 P4 games, Jake, I don't see any way the SEC doesn't dominate the college football playoff in a 5-11 format.
Yeah, you mean like they have since its inception? I mean, everyone wants to point to, well, the Big Ten won the last 2 national championships, and that might be true. But I think it's just a really short-sighted take, because while you've been winning the championship the last 2 years, one of those years was marked by massive controversy, and last year was one of the greatest championship runs we've ever seen out of Ohio State. But everyone pretty much agrees that Ohio State is the workhorse of the Big Ten, and there's not, some, plethora of schools coming out of that conference. So to say that the Big Ten is, the best conference because they've won the last 2 national championships, I just think is really short-sighted. What you should be looking at is total participation over the last even 5 years, I would say, in the college football playoff. And when you look at that, the SEC has a clear edge. And I think that this obsession by the Big Ten to force the SEC to play 9 conference games is laughable to me, because I look at the schedule and it's like, dude, you're not making their life more difficult. Like, they're already playing. Like, Florida's got the hardest schedule in the country by most people's measures, dude. Like, this isn't some secret. They're already playing the hardest schedules in college football. So you making them play, a 9th conference game versus 9 P4s really doesn't change a whole lot for the SEC, which is why I think Greg Sankey's perfectly comfortable with it, as we discussed yesterday. So this concept out of the national writers, the Brett McMurphys of the world, that sources are telling him the Big Ten is trying to leverage the SEC into playing, 9 conference games as a trade for the 5-11 model because the Big Ten would prefer to have 4 auto bids. It's just, to me, is just posturing. You're playing the media game. You're trying to write this narrative that oh, well, the SEC doesn't play 9 conference games, so there's no way we could give them the 5-11. And I just think it's such, for anybody who follows college football and watches college football in depth and in detail and understands how these games go and understands the dynamic, you fully then should understand that the conference portion of that is inconsequential. What matters is how many power opponents are you playing, as Greg Sankey said. And I just think it's pretty clear the SEC's got that on lock. Like, they're not playing 2 power opponents every year in 8 conference games. Bro, they're playing damn near all of them are playing 10 power opponents every year. Like, most of the conference plays 9, and then there's a good handful of them that played 10 last year. Like, what are we really talking about right now? What really is the leverage the Big Ten has? And that's what I think Big Ten fan does not want to talk about.
Yeah, and I don't think the Big Ten has much leverage. I mean, obviously, you look at Greg Sankey's stature, and with all due respect to Tony Petitti, because I think he's done a really nice job in his short time, in his short tenure. He didn't negotiate the new TV deal. He doesn't have relationships that run deep the way that a guy like Greg Sankey does. I just think there's no competing there because Tony Petitti hasn't had time to build that. Frankly, I think the scandals in the Big Ten, including Michigan, probably wounded Tony Petitti on some level.
And by the way, what help does the Big Ten have? The SEC has the Big 12, right? Like,
yeah.
Where's the ACC on the support front? Oh, that's right. The ACC is not going to get involved and is very much a follower in this conversation because they don't have a way to justify power in the conversation because Dabo hasn't won a damn thing in how long, right? I mean, you haven't had, like, if you look at the ACC's participation in the college football playoff, once Fivehead went to the NFL, Clemson really hasn't been that same guy. And Dabo seemingly hasn't had traction in the NIL era. So yeah, did the ACC get SMU? Was Miami a nice story? Was Clemson kind of in the conversation? Sure. But they're not in the conversation the way that Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State are. Like, it's a different level of power. So I would agree that Tony Petitti's lack of, relationships and really just, he doesn't have a grip on things the way that Greg Sankey does, in my opinion. Everybody is going to listen to what Greg Sankey has to say. And I think everybody
when he talks, people listen.
Yeah, dude. I mean, hell, we're halfway across the country and we're having in-depth conversations about what this guy has to say about college football. Like, he is the voice. But I think it's important to understand if the Big Ten's going to try to leverage the SEC into doing something, I just think it's a futile effort because what you don't have is the majority on your side.
But what does that even look like? Because I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
If the Big Ten is going to try and, exert some kind of leverage, what leverage do they have? And I know that Big Ten supporter wants to tell you, well, we've got back-to-back national championships, Monty. But what I'm telling you is that the Michigan championship is damaging to the Big Ten. There's no question about it. The blight that is Jim Harbaugh's era at Michigan, I think really does significant damage to the Big Ten. It's embarrassing. It is, in my opinion, the definition of a lack of ethics at Michigan. And you look at the way that the SEC is operated, there is no gold standard without Nick Saban in college football. You look at what Kirby's built there. Hell, you can go to the ACC and look at what Jesus Christ incarnate Dabo Sweeney's built there, and the respect that he has as a
name, image, and likeness.
I mean, the guy's in heaven already. I believe that's where they spend halftime. But my point is, Dabo Sweeney's a guy that's got pretty much universal respect.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just awfully difficult to make the argument that a guy like Tony Petitti is not the number 2 commissioner in college football. That's Brett Yormark now. There's no question. Again, I know I play this bite seemingly every day, but where do you think he got this?
5-11 is fair. We want to earn it on the field. It might not be the best solution today for the Big 12, given your comments about AQs. But long term, knowing the progress we're making, the investments we're making, it's the right format for us. And I'm doubling down today on 511. And I know Jim Phillips will, and I'm sure some of the other conference commissioners will as well.
I'm telling you now, that's not accidental. And I can only continue and go round and round. And I know you guys hate when I do it. But I'll just tell you, we reported this weeks ago. And now here's Ross Dellinger. So it must be true, right? I understand. Trust me, bro, is my source.
Right.
But Ross Dellinger is essentially right here breaking the news of the exact same thing that we've been reporting for weeks. That the Big Ten and the SEC are at odds, and they are going head to head. And the Big Ten does not want a 5-11 format because I think they are well aware that if it goes 5-11, they're in real trouble. Because notice one of the things about this Greg Sankey bite that I think is so fascinating from several weeks ago. Notice that he doesn't call, everybody assumed that they were talking about Jim Phillips or the Big 12 or what if Greg Sankey's talking about Tony Petitti right here?
I don't need lectures from others about good of the game. I don't lecture others about good of the game. And coordinating press releases about good of the game. Again, okay, you can issue your press statement, but I'm actually looking for ideas to move us forward.
Who is he talking about? I don't know either.
The person he's talking about knows who he's talking about.
I would agree.
That.
I would agree. And I just keep going back to this. Brett Yormark is an operator. He's a guy who doesn't speak accidentally. He's a guy who doesn't talk off the top of his head. He's a guy who's well prepared, well spoken. He's an operator from the entertainment industry. He's given press conferences and had big meetings and sat at tables. You never hear from Tony Petitti. You don't hear, I'm all in and I'm doubling down on 5-11. Because how is Tony Petitti going to say that out loud? Well, and then put it in the light of, was Greg Sankey talking about Tony Petitti when he said, I don't need you barking at me with your demands. I need ideas to move us forward. Seems like that's a hell of a lot more possible now that Ross Dellinger has broken the news that the Big Ten and the SEC are running their faces into each other over the future of the college football playoff.
And I feel like it's worth talking about too, like this, like the percentages of power in the conversation, because I think that a lot of people view this as the Big Ten and the SEC are on level ground, and then the ACC is the worst and the Big 12's in third, which, I don't disagree. The Big 12's in third, and in my opinion, the ACC is in last. I just think when you look at performance and you look at what's happening in these conferences, where they're headed, I don't know. We can bandy about that, but this whole idea that the Big Ten somehow is on level footing with the SEC, you need to understand this. So there's two different conversations or dynamics at play. There's the on the field dynamic, obviously, right? Like who's the better conference on the field, right? Like, and we talk about that all the time.
And that's opinion based. Let's do it,
yeah,
right?
Right. But then I think there's also the other side of it, which is the politics of it, which is what we're talking about with these clips. And I think what stands out to me is that basically what we see happen is Greg Sankey speaks and says what he's going to say, that, he decides what he's going to say, right? Like, it's not like he's posturing to Tony Petitti or any of the commissioners. He's just going to tell you how it is, how he feels. Like, that's just who he is.
And I get the idea that when he says stuff like, I need ideas to move us forward, you go ahead and put out your press releases. I get the idea he said that across a conference room table. I get the idea that he said that in a meeting.
Yeah.
Because when you have the authority and the power that Greg Sankey has, he doesn't need to shake your hand. Because, again, Greg Sankey has made it pretty clear that, hey, if we have to go with the 5-7 model, we're fine to go with the 5-7 model. We'll stick at 8 games. I'm fine to play 8 games.
But isn't that the difference? And this is exactly my point. in dynamic and who's got more to lose and how we all feel right now. The difference is the SEC is good in whatever format because they're going to beat your ass on the field either way. They don't care, right? They know that if it's 5-11, okay, cool. We've expanded to 16. We know for sure we're going to have 4 teams, and on a great year, we might even push to 6. We're good, right? Like, okay, you don't want that. Okay, you're going to try to, grab us by the balls and do this whole 8-conference, 9-conference game conversation. Fine. We'll do 9 conference games in 5-11 because we're already playing 9 power opponents. So 9 conference games doesn't really mean anything to us. That's not a problem for us, dude. Right? Like, so my point is the SEC is essentially immune and is in a place where they don't have to care what you think about what's better for you. Like the concept that the Big Ten is through its head coaches leaning and complaining and using the media to say, well, we got to have 4-4-2-2-1. It's our preferred setup in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Hey, that's neat that it's your preferred setup. But if I said, hey, like, who's going to have more just straight up on the field, who's going to have more wins this year and who's going to be in a better position? It's not the Big Ten. That's the problem, the bigger picture.
I think depth defines this. And again, I'm happy to say the only time Jake's ever said anything that made a lot of sense on this show is when he said it was time for Stanford to win football games or the Pac-12 was going to be in trouble. Well, you were absolutely right about that because I look at the Big Ten, and I don't know if Wasikowski's here or not. I haven't looked in the comment section, but this is the argument Eric Wasikowski and I have all the time. Oh, the Big Ten's won the last 2 national championships, Marty. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. Okay. Hey, man. You do you. You do you.
That's what it is.
You do you, Epstein. You do you. But here's what I'm telling you. You won last year's national championship.
Which, by all counts, one of the greatest runs we've ever seen.
And they said that, and I believe Kirby Smart, like people have said, great run. But what I continue to tell you is, Michigan damaged the Big Ten. They didn't bolster it. And there is a real lack of respect for the depth in the Big Ten. I have talked to multiple AP voters who have said there's too many questions about USC. Like one of the things I'm really working on as we head for fall camp, how much respect does USC have in the college football world? And I'm telling you, it is not a lot at all. Well, hey, holy cow. 2 things Jake has said that have been right on this show now. 2 things. 2. USC does not seem to curry a lot of respect. And if that's the case, we're talking about Ohio State and we're talking about Oregon.
Yeah, I would agree. But I think from a CFP standpoint, you have to put Penn State in there just because they're in there all the time. And voters seemingly like to put them in. So for me, it's 3 teams that the Big Ten can lean on to get in the college football playoff. But I think, in fairness to SC, I agree they don't have a lot of respect for him now, but I also think they're probably, I know we did it last season when the season was just about over, but we had counted I want to say it was 11 plays across the whole season to where if they had made those 11 plays, they're like a 9-10 win team. Like they're in the CFP conversation. So it's not as though USC is miles away from being relevant.
Not at all.
But
not at all.
It's this perception versus reality quotient that I think crushes the Big Ten, because I agree. The reality is you have 2, at most 3 teams that are in the CFP with regularity. And Michigan is down right now, whether you like that or not.
And how long, we don't know.
We don't know. So is that years? Is that 1 year?
But what happens? So Michigan's down. Oregon slides in there. So Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and
who?
A bunch of other dudes. And I'll go back to what Kirby Smart said. Now, Jake, who's really lazy, didn't get this audio, even though I asked him for it. Kirby Smart made a really good point here, though. We didn't see value in adding 9 more losses to the SEC last year. We didn't see it this year. What is the value? And what does he mean by that? What he means is everybody's got to play another game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're talking about 9 more losses in the league because somebody wins and somebody loses. I know that's rocket science. But if it's 5-11, and you're getting at least one team in, and then there's 11 more slots for you. Now there's value in adding 9 more losses to the SEC. Now there's value in taking that risk, right? If we're going to play a 9th game, we need the right people making the right decision in terms of who gets in and what is that going to be based off of. And again, let me go ahead and stretch that arm out, pat myself on the back here. What have I told you that the SEC is standing on business with? If we are going to play a 9th game, strength of schedule had better be the single and only, metric that determines who's in and who's out. And until the Big Ten is willing to do that, and the Big Ten so far, according to my sources, is unwilling to go 5-11 with the strength of schedule being the most important metric, the most heavily weighted metric. Because what happened when Sucka Ward Manuel was the guy pulling the strings on the college football playoff committee last year? Well, the SEC got screwed, and everybody in the Big Ten, except Ohio State, who knew Michigan's AD, who lacks ethics and morals, in my opinion, is going to screw Ohio State. Whew, who knew? Now, Ohio State kind of went knuckle deep on you, right? When they went on a run and won a national championship that now is regarded as the single greatest national championship ever. But Ward Manuel tried to screw the SEC and did.
And then what do we have now?
So now we're in a position where Ward Manuel is just back at the Michigan campus being the scumbag loser that he is, in my opinion. And now he doesn't really have a voice. And Tony Petitti, who Ward Manuel and that scumbag loser Jim Harbaugh and Santaono, Mr. First Amendment depression guy.
First team all Florida.
First team all private investigator couldn't get hired at Florida,
Right.
Now all of a sudden, when you were insulting Tony Petitti over the Jim Harbaugh suspension and you were saying that he didn't do his job and he's out of line and he breached the contract, remember that guy that you were insulting so heavily? Oh, yeah, now you need him now because because now he is your voice. Now he is your voice. And the problem is the Big Ten's not deep. What other explanation do you have? Well, I can tell you, I asked specifically, why doesn't the Big Ten want a 5-11? Multiple sources independent of each other said because they don't have the depth to win the strength of schedule argument.
And here's my point. When you want to talk about depth, it's not just on the football field. What does Greg Sankey have? He's got Brett Yormark leaning and saying, hey, Mac Rhodes, great leadership, reforming he didn't say reform, looking at the CFP selection process. So my point here
is... play the bite. Here's the bite. Here is Brett Yormark talking about that.
They are doing a full audit of the selection process to figure out how they can modernize and contemporize and how they use data and how certain metrics can be more heavily weighted. Most importantly, they have a great leader, Mac Rhodes of Baylor. And I have a lot of faith in Mac Rhodes and the work he's doing with the selection committee. So I have a lot of faith in what they're doing. And 5-11 is fair. We want to earn it on the field.
Mac Rhodes of Baylor. They have a great leader, Mac Rhodes of Baylor. I love that he talks in cadence, by the way. Anyway, the point is, you're exactly right. He's got one of his guys involved in the process. And I think if you are Brett Yormark, you are saying the right things. And I know I don't have sources outside of Trust Me, Bro, but what have I been telling you? Brett Yormark talks to his fellow commissioners, and I am telling you now, he talks to Greg Sankey on a regular basis. In times where the sea is calm, they were talking multiple times a month. They are talking more than that now. And I think it's one of Brett Yormark's best strengths. He is a relationship builder. He is a guy who goes out, channels people, builds relationships, keeps those relationships alive. He's that guy that'll send you a text message. You'd be like, man, he'll text Greg Sankey. In real world, I am told, where he was talking about how Brett Yormark texted Greg Sankey in the Arizona State-Texas game where the targeting call happened. And they were texting during that. That's the kind of relationship that Brett Yormark has with Greg Sankey, where they're talking, they're texting back and forth during a game where their two best teams are competing. That's the kind of relationship they have. They're not on opposite ends of the stadium. They're not trying to hide from a moment. They're sharing the moment in a huge moment. And again, one of the things I think is so interesting is, where was Greg Sankey when Texas was playing Michigan? Well, he was at the Big House. And he was talking about how they want big games, and Texas talking about how we need these venues, and these guys don't run from anybody. And so my point in all of this is that when I look at the state of the Big Ten versus the SEC and this opposition to the 5-11, you're goddamn right. If you're the Big Ten right now, you better be opposed to it, because you need your teams to have a massive 2025. If you are the Big Ten, my honest opinion is the Big Ten, I think this could arguably be, and I say arguably, this could arguably be their most important season ever. If it remains 5-7, I think that you have got to find a way. And I don't care how it happens. You have got to find a way, if you are the Big Ten, to have 3-4 teams that are absolutely making a case, and a strong case. And if that's Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, SC, I don't care who it is. If it's Illinois, because a lot of people think Illinois is going to be resurgent, and you have got to have 3-4 teams making a push and making a case and being the aggrieved party this year that gets left out of the college football playoff. I think you need that desperately, because it's the only way you're going to gain any kind of leverage and give Tony Petitti any kind of ammunition.
Yeah.